Catherine Zeta-Jones is not just a movie star. She is cinematic royalty, a timeless force of beauty and fire burning brightly through Hollywood's darkest storms. From a very first glance, the world was spellbound by her vintage elegance, her regal poise, and a presence so vivid it set every frame ablaze. She ignited the screen in Chicago, redefining strength and allure as Velma Kelly, a role that seared her image into the memory of a generation, not with applause alone, but with sheer reverence. We remember the scarlet lips, the razor-sharp moves, the thunder in her eyes. But few ever saw the woman behind the lights, the one who bled in silence, smiled through chaos, and still breathed with wounds that never truly healed. Behind the velvet curtain lived a soul quietly collapsing, a mother at war with invisible demons, a legend suffocating beneath the very light that once crowned her. What you are about to witness is not a tale of stardom, but a raw, haunting journey through pain, love, and survival against the odds. If Catherine ever stirred your heart, leave a like below, a silent standing ovation for the woman who never stopped shining through the storm. Few knew that the first fight of her life did not happen on stage, but on an operating table. There is a faint scar just beneath Catherine Zeta-Jones' chin, almost hidden beneath years of red carpet glamour, but it holds a story more painful than most of Hollywood will ever know. Long before the camera flashes and Oscar gold, she was just a little girl in Swansea, Wales, gasping for air as her tiny throat was sliced open to keep her alive. Only a toddler when a severe viral infection nearly claimed her life, doctors performed an emergency tracheotomy, leaving behind not just a scar but a mark of survival, the first wound in a life filled with silent battles. That scar never truly disappeared. It only learned to hide beneath makeup, beneath grace, beneath the dazzling persona the world came to adore. Born on September 25, 1969, into a working-class family, Catherine's father ran a humble bakery while her mother stitched clothes with care and resilience. Life was modest. Simple clothes, narrow streets, early mornings. But even in the stillness, Catherine moved with something more. She danced through the living room as if the walls were wings and sang with a voice that never asked permission. Her parents noticed, nurtured, and when fate knocked, they opened the door. In a miraculous twist of destiny, the family won £100,000 in a national lottery, an unthinkable fortune for their means. Instead of splurging, they moved to a better neighborhood, bought a pastry shop, and invested in Catherine's future with dance lessons, stage coaching, and voice training. She had that fire from the start. Her father once said, "We just gave it a." By 4, Catherine was performing in local church halls. By 11, she played Annie on stage. And at 13, she lit up the West End in Bugs and Malone. But with every step into the spotlight, another piece of childhood was left behind. No carefree afternoons, no room for mistakes, only endless rehearsals, long commutes, and the pressure to never falter. In 1983, at just 14, she auditioned for the national tour of the Pajama Game, directed by Mickey Dolenz of the Monks. She didn't just land the role. She stole it, moved to London, rehearsed like a veteran, and the following year, at only 15, she made a decision few adults could fathom. She left school to pursue acting full-time. It was a tragic kind of bravery, beautiful but brutal. While other girls her age scribbled in diaries, Catherine was learning to survive rooms full of adults, critics, and closed doors. Years later, she would reflect, "People think I was fearless, but I was just trying to keep up. There was no plan B." And through it all, the scar remained, quiet, invisible, but pulsing, a reminder that her very first breath was a fight, her childhood carved by fate, sharpened by pain, but carried with grace. Childhood never really ended for her, because she never had the chance to truly be a child. Her path into the arts was not paved with fame, but with sacrifice and a singular obsession that burned brighter than fear. After surviving the trauma of her early years, fate handed her family an unlikely lifeline, the lottery win. For most, it would have meant comfort. For the Zeta-Jones household, it meant transformation. They reinvested in her gift, propelling her from church halls to musicals, from Annie to Bugs and Malone. Each stage a battlefield, each applause a reminder that she belonged to the world of light and illusion. But at 15, the stakes sharpened. Offered a starring role in the West End production of The Pajama Game, Catherine faced a decision that could shatter her future: return to class and play it safe, or gamble everything on performance. She chose the latter, not recklessly, but because there was no other path. For her, this was not rebellion but surrender to destiny. Yet Hollywood would prove far less welcoming. In 1990, she landed her first film role in the French production 101 Nights, playing a cinematic Scheherazade. She had dreamed of magic. What followed was humiliation. The film flopped miserably, selling under 740 tickets in France, grossing less than $254,000, and landing in 78th place at the box office. It was not just a failure, it was a warning. Catherine had barely stepped onto the silver screen before being shoved out of frame. The dream, so vivid and intoxicating, suddenly cracked. But rather than retreat in shame, she returned home, not defeated, but refocused. Back in England, she rebuilt from the ground up, landing the role of Mariette in the beloved series The Darling Buds of May 1991 to 1993, a show that made her a household name in the UK. Critics adored her, audiences embraced her, and slowly, piece by piece, she began to prove that even those who stumble in their first act can still earn a standing ovation. Catherine never chose the easy path. She chose the one lit only by faith. And that faith, tested, battered, and nearly broken, was just beginning to reveal its worth. By the time she arrived in America, her resume sparkled with promise, but Hollywood didn't care. To casting agents, she was just another pretty face with a British accent, a television darling from across the Atlantic who didn't quite belong on the silver screen. She took whatever role she could find. Christopher Columbus, The Discovery, 1992, Splitting A's, 1993, and The Phantom, 1996. Each was meant to be a stepping stone, but instead became reminders that her dream was slipping further away. The reviews were cold, the phone calls never came, and every audition felt heavy with silent judgment whispering, "Not quite enough." It was a bruising time, and she later admitted, "I started to think maybe they were right. Maybe I didn't have what it took." Each rejection cut deeper, not because she feared hard work, but because this was the first time effort didn't equal results. She watched others so while she lingered on the sidelines, clinging to a belief that was growing harder to defend, that her time would come. Heartbreaking as it was to imagine, this woman who had conquered the West End and charmed millions in the UK now doubted every move, every glance, every word. Then, in a moment that felt scripted by fate, Steven Spielberg noticed her. Some say it was a performance in the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles. Others claim it was a 1996 miniseries Titanic. But either way, something about Catherine lingered with him. That was all it took, one phone call, one belief in her potential. Spielberg's interest changed everything. Suddenly, doors opened, scripts arrived, and in 1998 she landed the role that would immortalize her, Elena Montero in The Mask of Zorro. Yet even that victory wasn't handed to her. She faced fierce competition from Penelope Cruz, Shakira, Isabella Scorupco, names far more familiar to American audiences. Catherine had to fight for that role, train for it, and earn it in every sense. Sword fighting, horseback riding, dialect coaching. She embraced it all. And when the cameras rolled, she didn't just act, she exploded. The role didn't just elevate her career, it resurrected her dream. After years of being overlooked, dismissed, and doubted, Catherine didn't just arrive. She blazed onto the Hollywood map. As one critic wrote, she didn't steal the scene. She owned it. Yet what audiences saw on screen, the elegance, the command, the grace, was only the polished result of a brutal transformation. Catherine trained for months in silence behind closed studio doors, in sweat-soaked rehearsal halls where no makeup, no costume, no praise could ease the ache in her muscles. She fell from horses, bruised her ribs, and bled from hours of sword work, but never once complained. "I wanted to earn it," she recalled. "Not just be pretty in a dress, but hold my own next to Antonio Banderas." She refused a stunt double for her fight scenes. Every slash, every dodge, every flamenco-infused spin of Elena's skirt was Catherine. The result was a global box office smash, over $250 million on a $95 million budget. The Mask of Zorro wasn't just a hit. It was a phenomenon. Overnight, Catherine Zeta-Jones became a household name. Her image was everywhere, magazines, talk shows, red carpets. She wasn't just Hollywood's new favorite. She embodied timeless allure, poised between classic sophistication and modern magnetism. Yet even with the adoration, she remained grounded. "I was terrified I'd wake up and it to be gone," she confessed. She pressed forward. In 1999, she starred in Entrapment alongside Sean Connery, delivering one of cinema's most iconic moments, gliding through laser beams in skin-tight black. Her elegance turned electric. Critics rave. Audiences couldn't look away. Then came Traffic, 2000, where she shed glamour to play a drug lord's conflicted wife, a performance so raw it earned her a SAG award and a Golden Globe nomination. But nothing compared to 2002, when she embodied Velma Kelly in Chicago. Pregnant with her daughter, Catherine danced, sang, and stole every frame of a film that would win Best Picture at the Oscars. When she accepted her own Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress, just 10 days before giving birth, she became a living portrait of strength, cradling her baby bump, clutching gold, radiating power. "I carried more than a child that night," she later said. "I carried every role, every rejection, every bit of doubt that ever haunted me, and I let it all go." And yet, beyond the spotlight, Catherine's story was not just about stardom. In the glitz and glow of Hollywood, few love stories have sparked as much fascination and scrutiny as Hayes with Michael Douglas. On the surface, it was perfect. Two Academy Award-winning stars, worlds apart in age and origin, yet drawn together by something inexplicable. But what began as a fairy tale encounter soon unfolded into one of the most emotionally complex, fiercely tested unions in Hollywood history. A union forged not just in love, but in loneliness, fear, and sacrifice. Catherine Zeta-Jones's path to Michael Douglas was anything but simple. Before him, she had known love but also heartbreak. Her first serious relationship with British TV presenter John Leslie began with promise, but soon turned suffocating, his unchecked jealousy and controlling outbursts leaving her, barely in her 20s, shrinking inside a relationship that offered little space for her dreams or independence. She ended it quietly, without drama, though the wounds lingered. Later, she fell deeply for Scottish actor Angus McFadden of Braveheart fame. Their connection was instant. Their engagement in the mid-1990s seemed to promise a future, yet the relationship unraveled shortly before the wedding. The reasons were never made public, perhaps because Catherine herself could never fully explain them. "Some loves burn bright but fast," she would later reflect. "Others you carry like a shadow for the rest of your life." Then, in 1998 at the Deauville Film Festival in France, destiny stepped in. Michael Douglas was already a legend, a two-time Oscar winner and Hollywood royal. Catherine, radiant and rising at 28, had just broken through with the Mask of Zorro. He was 53, seasoned and weathered by decades of fame. The 25-year age gap between them was more than years. It was a world apart. Introduced by mutual friends, they discovered a surprising coincidence. They shared the same birthday, September 25th. But when Michael boldly told her, "You're going to be the mother of my children," Catherine was stunned, even put off, dismissing it as arrogance. She excused herself, certain their paths had crossed for the last time. They hadn't. Days later, roses arrived on the set of Entrapment in Scotland with a handwritten apology from Michael, playful, sincere, and disarming. That gesture opened the door. Phone calls followed, brief at first, then stretching into hours across time zones, filled with confessions of childhood memories, family, fears, and dreams. Catherine never imagined she would fall for a man 25 years her senior. Yet one night she realized she no longer saw Michael as an icon, but as the one person who truly listened. On New Year's Eve 1999, both sick with the flu and bundled in blankets in Aspen, Michael proposed with a vintage 10-carat diamond ring. It was far from glamorous, but real, and Catherine said yes without hesitation. Soon after, they learned she was pregnant, doubling their joy. On November 18th, 2000, Catherine Zeta-Jones married Michael Douglas in a lavish $1.5 million ceremony at New York's Plaza Hotel. She wore a custom Christian LaCroix gown. He wore a proud smile, and their infant son Dylan was cradled in his arms. The guest list read like a roll call of Hollywood royalty: Tom Hanks, Steven Spielberg, Jennifer Aniston, Sharon Stone. Yet beneath the grandeur was a quiet triumph of a woman who had fought hard to believe in love again. But their wedding was marred by intrusion, despite selling exclusive rights to OK Magazine for $1 million, paparazzi from Hello, Magazines snapped unauthorized photos, sparking a years-long lawsuit, though the ruling ultimately minimized the harm. For Catherine, the damage was personal, her dream wedding trespassed upon, her private vows made public. Marriage quickly gave way to motherhood. Dylan was born in 2000, Karis followed in 2003, and determined to protect them from the glare of Hollywood, Catherine and Michael moved to Bermuda, where his family had ties. For 6 years, they lived quietly, far from red carpets and flashing cameras. It was the first time in my life I didn't hear the word action for months, and I loved it, Catherine reflected. But even paradise held shadows. She balanced her career, motherhood, and the unrelenting scrutiny of a marriage endlessly dissected by the public. Whispers grew. Was it real? Would it last? Was she too young, too ambitious, too visible? In her quiet moments, Catherine sometimes asked herself the same questions. She admitted years later to lying awake at night, watching Michael sleep and wondering, am I enough for this life? Is he enough for me? And yet, through noise, doubt, and scandal, she clung to something fierce and unshakable, belief. Not just in Michael, but in herself, and in the quiet power of choosing to stay when walking away might have been easier. Love is not about perfection, she once said. It's about endurance, forgiveness, and waking up the next day still choosing each other. For Catherine, the real wedding wasn't the ceremony at the plaza. It was every morning after, every headline endured, every sacrifice made in silence. Her love story was never picture perfect, but it was real. And for a girl from Swansea who once had nothing but a stage and a scar to her name, that was more than enough. It is easy to romanticize stardom as a life of gowns, carpets, and applause, but the truth lies in what happens when the lights dim, when the person behind the spotlight is left to wrestle with demons no one else can see. For Catherine Zeta-Jones, the years following her rise to Hollywood royalty brought not peace, but a slow and painful unraveling. After the birth of her daughter Karis in 2003, she and Michael Douglas retreated from the world, relocating to Bermuda to raise their children in privacy. To outsiders, it seemed idyllic, blue skies, ocean breezes, and freedom from paparazzi's relentless flash. But within that tranquil island life, a silent storm was brewing. Catherine began experiencing severe mood swings, exhaustion, and period of emotional paralysis that no amount of sunshine could cure. For years, she struggled in silence, putting on a flawless face for the cameras while feeling her spirit buckle behind the scenes. There were times she couldn't get out of bed, times she felt like an imposter in her own life. I had to smile at premieres while I was falling apart inside, she later admitted. The diagnosis came quietly but with thunderous weight, bipolar II disorder, marked by severe depression and hypermanic episodes. At first, she told no one. The stigma surrounding mental health, especially in Hollywood, was suffocating. She feared judgment, gossip, and worst of all, pity. So she endured mothering, acting, smiling, posing, everything she was supposed to be, except herself. Meanwhile, Michael was fighting his own battles. In 2009, his eldest son, Cameron, from a previous relationship, was arrested and later sentenced to 5 years in federal prison for drug offenses. The media fed on the story like vultures. Catherine, already fragile, now found herself consoling a devastated husband while shielding her children from headlines that threatened to swallow them whole. Then came another blow. In 2010, Michael was diagnosed with stage 4 throat cancer. The news shattered their world. Catherine, barely holding herself together, walked cold hospital corridors, sitting at his bedside through rounds of brutal chemotherapy. She watched the man who once lit up every room shiver beneath thin blankets, too weak to speak, too proud to cry. As if the pain of illness weren't enough, another storm erupted, this one public and humiliating. During a candid interview, Michael made headlines worldwide by linking his cancer to HPV, a sexually transmitted virus. While scientifically possible, the media seized a quote, sensationalized it, and dragged Catherine into the scandal. Overnight, headlines shifted from survival to speculation. The whispers were cruel, the judgment sharper than any scalpel. Friends recalled her saying she felt betrayed, exposed, and humiliated. Not just the press, but how easily the world forgot we were just trying to survive. The man who had once been her rock now appeared frail and terrified, and while Catherine stood by him through every treatment, she privately unraveled further. It felt like every part of my life was in free fall, she confessed. By 2011, the weight became unbearable. Quietly, without fanfare, she checked herself into a mental health facility in Connecticut. When the news inevitably leaked, she chose honesty over shame. "This is a disorder that affects millions of people," she told the press. "I'm not ashamed. Mental health is not something to hide." With that single statement, Catherine shattered decades of stigma in the entertainment industry. Suddenly, her courage wasn't just personal, it was political, universal. Fans wrote to her by the thousands, thanking her for making it okay to not be okay. Yet even as she found her voice, the strain on her marriage deepened. By 2013, the cracks finally showed. Catherine and Michael announced they were taking time apart, and the press exploded with rumors, infidelity, alcohol abuse, betrayal. The truth was quieter, far less sensational. "We needed space to heal," Catherine admitted later. "Both of us were broken in different ways." For a year, they lived separately, and then quietly, they chose each other again. That decision, uncelebrated and unglamorous, may have been the bravest of all. It wasn't about grand gestures, but about survival, rebuilding not just a marriage, but a sense of self. Catherine emerged from those years not only as an actress, but as a woman reborn. Her eyes carried more shadows, but also more fire. She began speaking openly about her mental health journey, insisting in interviews, "We talk about cancer openly. We talk about heart disease. Why not mental illness?" Her honesty helped reshape the conversation in Hollywood and beyond, turning whispers into dialogue, shame into strength. She never claimed to have all the answers, but her authenticity gave comfort to countless others who were silently suffering. ChatGPT said, "Those 8 months apart were not glamorous. They were dark, brutal, filled with self-doubt and whispered fears." At 4 Catherine found herself lying awake at night, questioning everything, her choices, her worth, her future. Each morning she awoke wondering if she had lost not just a marriage, but a home, a history, and the one man who truly knew her heart. She carried the ache in her chest like a weight no makeup could hide. Friends said she rarely spoke of Michael except once, in a hushed confession, "You don't stop loving someone just because you're hurting." And so, after 8 months of soul-searching, not therapy, not interviews, not blame, they chose love again quietly. No press conference, no war of words, just two hands reaching for each other in the dark, believing that love, if real, doesn't walk away. By 2017, the tides had shifted. Cameron, Michael's son from his first marriage, was released from prison and soon became a father himself, sparking a sense of healing for a family once defined by fracture. For Catherine, who had watched them suffer through a decade of shame, it felt like the return of something long buried, hope. Then, in 2018, a new storm struck. Michael faced allegations of sexual misconduct as old rumors resurfaced in a volatile world. Catherine, blindsided, stood by him publicly, but privately, sources said she was heartbroken. At 49, she no longer had the energy to pretend everything was fine. "I didn't sign up for perfect," she would later say. "I signed up for love, and love means you stand still in the chaos." The investigation went nowhere, but the scars lingered. Yet, through it all, they endured. By 2020, their home life shifted again. With Dylan and Karis leaving for college, Catherine found herself stepping into what she called their third act. At 51, she stared into a mirror no longer defined by movie roles or red carpets, but by a quiet kind of endurance. The house was quieter, but not empty. Mornings were slower, conversations deeper. She and Michael traveled together, cooked together, and talked not of scripts or premieres, but of memories, of futures, of simply being. A friend recalled seeing them barefoot in their living room, dancing to an old jazz record. "It wasn't glamorous," she said. "It was peace." In a rare interview that year, Catherine reflected, "I've been many things, daughter, wife, mother, star. But these days, I just want to be still. I want to be whole." For her, peace wasn't the absence of storms, but the grace to keep dancing through them, hand in hand all these years later. There is a certain grace that only time can reveal. As Catherine Zeta-Jones enters this later chapter of her life, she doesn't walk into it quietly. She glides unwavering, sculpted not by spotlight, but by storm survived. Today, she divides her time between a majestic $33 million villa in Mallorca, Spain, and a Manhattan apartment overlooking Central Park. The Spanish estate isn't just property. It's sanctuary, surrounded by olive trees and centuries-old stonework, where Catherine says she feels closer to the earth and to herself. Though the headlines have dimmed, her presence hasn't. At 54, she is still magnetic. In 2022, she stunned audiences in Netflix's Wednesday, playing Morticia Addams with elegance and eerie charm, proving that reinvention isn't just possible, it's her forte. She may not appear in every film or on every red carpet, but when she does, the world looks up. In 2021, a photo of her with daughter Karis went viral, the resemblance so striking it was like looking at Catherine through a time mirror. It wasn't just beauty passed down, it was legacy. Beyond the camera, Catherine has built a second empire, not of scripts and monologues, but of scent, fabric, and signature taste. Her lifestyle brand, Catherine Zeta-Jones, spans home decor, luxury bedding, cosmetics, and fashion, reflecting her eye for timeless beauty. Endorsements and partnerships earn her more than $20 million annually, with her personal net worth estimated at around $150 million. In 2010, she was appointed Commander of the Order of the British Empire, CB, for her contribution to drama, an honor she described as deeply humbling and affirming. But Catherine doesn't measure her worth in dollars or medals. A beautiful home is only beautiful if it holds peace, she once told a design magazine. That pursuit of peace runs deep. Her marriage, once on the brink of collapse, now rests on sturdier ground. She and Michael Douglas, both cancers born on the same day 25 years apart, now live with more space between them, emotionally and literally. Sometimes both partners need their own sky to see the same stars, she once mused. It isn't distance, she insists. It's design. They visit each other often, speak daily, and still call each other home. Catherine is also a devoted mother. With Dylan and Karis now in college, she embraces a quieter family rhythm. Her Instagram shows glimpses of cozy dinners, board game nights, and barefoot mornings with coffee and jazz. Yet peace did not come without cost. Her battle with bipolar II disorder, first disclosed in 2011, lingers like a shadow, silent but present. She adheres to a strict wellness routine of yoga, meditation, and a macrobiotic diet. It's not about chasing youth, she said in an interview at 50. It's about staying whole. It's about honoring survival. Catherine rarely misses her dermatologist's visits and begins her mornings with lemon water and breathing exercises. Her face carries a glow of self-respect, not surgery, and even now she refuses to let fear guide her. She has taken steps to structure her estate, with whispers of a will, trust funds, and legacy plans for both her family and the arts. Through scholarships in Wales, she quietly supports young actors, mentoring from afar. When asked what scares her most today, she answered simply, wasting time. That's the only thing I don't have an endless supply of anymore. The old wound haven't vanished. The whispers around her marriage, the public breakdowns, the stigma of mental illness, they remain a part of her. But she carries them like a seasoned dancer holds her posture, strong spine, soft eyes. She no longer feels a need to prove herself. Now she seeks only to be present, purposeful, and at peace. Perhaps the most powerful image of Catherine isn't from a movie at all, but from a candid paparazzi photo, barefoot on a balcony, wrapped in a linen robe, hair messy, sipping coffee as the sun warmed her cheek. No makeup, no performance, just a woman who had learned how to live. If her journey has moved you, if her resilience resonates, it's not for the star but for the survivor. Because sometimes survival itself is the greatest role of all. From a lottery ticket in Swansea to standing beneath the golden lights of Oscar night, Catherine Zeta-Jones' story is not one of luck, but a quiet defiance, relentless effort, and an unshakable belief in her own voice. She was never just a beautiful face in a glamorous world. She was a girl who learned to fight for breath, the teenager who left school to chase a dream, the woman who broke down in silence but stood up in public. Life gave her a stage, yes, but she built the performance out of pain, persistence, and power. You can buy a lottery ticket, but only talent and spirit can rewrite fate. Catherine rewrote Hayes with grace. Today, at 55, she still carries the weight of invisible wounds. By her own admission, there are mornings when the fog of mental illness lingers, when shadows of depression and bipolar disorder threaten to resurface. In interviews, she has spoken honestly about the exhaustion of being everything to everyone, the elegant star, the devoted mother, the loyal wife. "It doesn't go away," she once confided. "You learn to live with it, manage it, but some mornings it still hurts to get out of bed." And still she rises, still she gives, still she shines. She stands not only as a Hollywood icon, but as a beacon of resilience for all those navigating their own quiet storms. Her journey reminds us that behind every dazzling smile may lie a battle no one sees, and that healing is not linear, but possible. We honor her not for perfection, but for persistence, for showing us that strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers, "Keep going." Her legacy isn't just in awards or applause, but in the way she made survival look graceful, even when it was anything but. And to those reading who are still in the thick of their own storm, this is your sign to keep moving. Whether you are caring for a sick loved one, living with invisible pain, or piecing your life back together in silence, Catherine's story reminds us you're not alone. Scars can shine, silence can hold power, and one moment of grace can lead to a lifetime of change. She once said, "Mental health is not something to be ashamed of." And in saying so, she gave voice to millions who didn't know how to speak. So let us honor not only her, but also the caregivers, the parents, the dreamers, and the quietly courageous, the ones who rarely make headlines but whose strength holds entire families together. Catherine's journey mirrors this too. From hospital rooms to red carpets, her strength has worn many faces.